Hi guys, welcome. This is the Q&A video. My name is Billy. This is Kimberly.
Hi.
We were taking a poll and we found the most common question that we were going to use for this week's video. And it is, why is English hard to learn?
It's a long ass answer. I mean, if you really want to understand it, it's a long ass answer. Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with history, right? It's the complications of the area in which English was born and how many times it was conquered. First thing about English and why it's hard to learn is because the sounds of the language are not well represented by the character system. And in a lot of places, people assume that should be the case because there are a lot of languages that do that. Yeah, I said do. Sorry. Last week I said is.
We never grow up here. Ever.
I was thinking about that Swedish girl saying words twice. Oh my god.
Ducky,
and then she said all those weird words, and I was like, what? She didn't even explain what they mean. And then she said poos poos.
Yeah, they say poos poos in Swedish.
What does that mean?
I don't know. It sounds naughty.
Is that like kitty cat?
Yeah, who knows?
Okay.
So.
Well, okay. Why is English hard to learn? First, you need to understand why. Well, first you need to understand where English came from. So, English, people think of it as being from the UK, but the origins of the English language came from that part of the world, but it didn't sound a lot like how English sounds anymore, because first, that part of the world, after they had already established English, the Anglo-Saxons, it was conquered by the Romans, and the Romans spoke Latin. And then after the fall of Rome, there was a group of people who it was kind of descendants of the Visigoths, and also a tribe of the Visigoths, and also a combination of the Romans that had still lived there, and they created a language that's what was French. And then the Normans invaded.
History, right?
Yeah, it's history. Yeah, it's history.
History.
So the Normans invaded southern England and tried to take over. I can't remember now. I don't know my UK history super well. It mostly only relates to language, but they took over a part of the islands, I think of all of them at some point, and then made everybody learn French and insisted upon using a Latin character system. So they had people who were speaking a language in the streets that were illiterate, right? You had Anglo-Saxons that really didn't have much of a written character system, and if they did, they didn't know how to use it. They were being told to fit their language into Latin and Latin roots, right? So English is hard to learn because you have 44 spoken sounds that are all very distinct, and you have to represent them in reading and writing with a character system that does not really fit what the sounds are. It's made more difficult by the fact that when people go online now to try and learn English, people start with the alphabet and teach people that English has like 5 vowel sounds, which it does not. It has like 14 vowel sounds. If you've been told that, it's a lie.
It's kind of wild.
Yeah, it makes my brain explode, right? They're like, well, because there's 5 vowels on the alphabet. Yeah, but our alphabet is not a good representation of our language. So you have to remember that if you are struggling with English, it's because you're probably being taught wrong. And that isn't necessarily anybody's fault. It's just, it's hard. It's a hard thing to learn. It's a hard thing to teach. So
I mean, the reality is that we're very fortunate in the fact that Kim has a very unique set of skills that are based in years and years and years of vocalization and practice. And you know, we've been able to harness that knowledge to create a learning platform that generates, you know, easy to follow steps with major outcome improvements. And
we're actually gonna post a video about it later.
Where people aren't able to take that knowledge and then apply to the grammar, they start with what they know. They start with their own strengths, which are the things on paper, not the vocalizations.
Yeah.
So our program with Kim's skill set gives us the ability to start where you typically do with your own language. You know, the goo goo gagas, the baby talk, all of those things are your most basic training. And with our program, you get extensive starting point training.
Yeah.
So
it makes what is a it makes a very difficult task manageable, because it uses your brain's natural facilities to introduce you to a language the same way that you would have learned a language as a child. And that's not how other people are teaching languages. It's not how you learn a language on Rosetta Stone. Like if you are going to a language learning platform and they're teaching you vocabulary first or grammar, heaven forbid, grammar first, that's a huge problem, because that's not how your brain works and you're not going to retain it. And if you try to communicate with someone who does have a grasp of language, they're going to think of you as
a foreign speaker at a bare minimum.
Yeah, because your brain and their brains are not going to be able to connect, because that's what language is ultimately.
I mean, a lot of people will tend to actually reference that as knowing the culture, right?
Yeah,
or being in tune with, you know, the way someone communicates in that way. But really, a lot of it relates to being able to specifically hear the detailed sound being
and making it mean
you
something,
and understanding what it means.
And making it mean something, and it's a process. You have to train your brain, and that's why we invented our, and created our program, was because we realized that the actual science of language learning was not being applied to English specifically, and to a lot of languages when people try to learn them as adults. So that's why we're here.
Right.
Is because we realized that was a huge problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on to the idioms. I feel like we spend enough time on that. Plus, we talk about, nootrl all the time anyways, because we are educating a lot of people on these things, because there's been a lot of misinformation. So the idiom for this video we're going to use is cutting corners. All right. That's the terminology when one would cut corners. And do you want to describe the...
Well, let's give an example first. We could say that other language learning programs like to cut corners by
it is how
starting
it sounds
with grammar.
If you know, but I don't want to assume
they cut corners, and it means to do something poorly in avoidance of work, right? So cutting corners as in like you were trying to do something in an easier way, but then the outcome is a lot crappier than what it should be. So instead of making it good and doing something well.
Like when someone does a new construction that collapses because they didn't do absolutely every single thing they should have done, that's a major example of something or some people cutting corners. Or
this
a
is a
group
really,
of people
this is
cutting
a very common idiom. I know in the United States it is. People use it all the time
because in some ways,
well.
and some people will actually try to use it in a non-negative way, but 9 times out of 10, when someone's cutting corners, you're talking about the negative aspects of doing results. Something quickly, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Whereas we would describe something that was done well, quickly, as being efficient, because you're not wasting time, but it's being done well.
Yes. That idiom comes from a driving reference, where when people would go to drive around a corner, they would cut over the curb.
Thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoyed. If you like this video, hit that like button. Make sure you click that bell so you subscribe and get notified every time we post a video. We're posting videos 5 days a week. So loads of fresh content. Make sure you're subscribed. Get ready to learn. That's it. Have a great night or a great day wherever you are in the world. Thanks for staying with us. Ciao. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.